Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So today we are taking a look at Armand's secret plan that he had in store for Claudia and Louis all along, and why he was initially so hesitant to turn Madeleine into a vampire. So it becomes pretty clear to Claudia that she did become something of a burden to Louis, but he simply won't leave her. Not just out of love, but out of concern for her well-being. If he did indeed just move on with Armand, it's not that simple for Louis. It's also no secret that Armand has never been Claudia's biggest fan, believing she was created far too young and that her mind would age well past her body's capability to cater how she truly felt on the inside. This is exactly what begins to happen to Claudia as she ages, but she seems better equipped to deal with this process during the TV series than she does in the book and also in the 1994 film. Well, at least she hides it better if anything. Armand had a plan for Claudia. He had a plan for Louis. He had a plan for everything from the moment he knew that he wanted Louis as a companion, and he executes that plan when he loses control of the coven to Santiago by the 7th episode of season 2. So let's take a look and break this all down. So before Armand meets Louis, he is the maître of the coven, the leader, the boss of the Théâtre des Vampires. He has superior powers, superior strength, and he does a pretty good job at being the boss. The coven respects him. Then Santiago becomes a vampire and joins the coven, ironically called the youngest vampire but physically the oldest human of them all before he was turned. Santiago has a rather dominating personality. He does command respect. You can tell that from the moment he appears on screen. It's also highlighted how Santiago is one of the strongest vampires of the coven, despite being so young, which means he was made from a powerful vampire, perhaps ancient blood. He always seems to be on the cusp of challenging Armand for Metra, like he was always looking for a weakness to exploit, something he could never find because Armand never really exposed himself until he met Louis, and this showed Santiago how far Armand was willing to bend the rules for the sake of his own happiness. This makes a lot of sense because the ultimate battle for any vampire is that of loneliness. Lestat highlights that loneliness for a vampire is almost unbearable, and that the only thing that fills it is the right companion, something Armand has been searching for until he met Louis. Now, here's where Armand plays this game really smart. He's the maître of the Théâtre des Vampires because that's what fills his void. That's what soothes his loneliness, but it is in no way fulfilling to him. He puts all of his efforts into the theatre production and is overly harsh with his critiquing, especially on Claudia. He's previously enforced the coven's 5 rules so strongly that there's evidence all around the theatre of those who broke them, mostly down in the coffins in the cellar. Santiago himself adheres to this because Armand has never shown any sort of selfishness when it comes to doing what's best for the coven, especially enforcing the rules. So then Armand develops a relationship with Louis after he and Claudia come to the theatre. It was initially thought that both Louis and Claudia would end up joining the coven, but when Louis shows absolutely no interest in doing so, which is made to look like a sheer case of disrespect on his part, in parallel to Claudia's overly enthusiastic approach to the vampires, like they have given her a completely new lease of life, Santiago then takes offense and he begins to also take a big disliking to Louis. Now it's clear that Louis doesn't think much of the Théâtre des Vampires. He's more interested in embracing the post-war Parisian Renaissance. He thinks that theatre is backwards and it's just not his scene. However, he hangs around there for Armand's sake, even though he really shouldn't be allowed to do so. He is not a coven member. He chimes in with his snarky comments, and it becomes more and more clear that Armand is abusing his power as maître to have Louis in the theatre. This is really pissing Santiago off more and more, in addition to Claudia taking the spotlight away from him in her new play that has become massively popular, pulling the importance of Santiago's real-life murder of a human away from him and what it truly represents. Despite that, he still feels sorry for Claudia, until he doesn't. We also see things come to a boiling point between Santiago and Louis when the vampires are having a dinner party. Okay, so you're wondering where this fits into Armand's secret plan? Don't worry, I'm getting there. Armand knows how weak Louis' mind block is and how strong Claudia's is. Santiago can't quite comprehend how he can easily access Louis' mind. We seen that when he embarrassed him word for word at the dinner party. But Claudia's is like a brick wall. As long as Louis doesn't think about or recall Lestat's death, then he is safe from Santiago. However, this just has Santiago become more curious about the situation. He knows that the other vampires are becoming less patient with Armand over his relationship with Louis. When he breaks into Louis and Claudia's apartment and finds that Claudia has not only been documenting the history of her life as a vampire, but also in those diaries provided evidence of her involvement with Lestat, which gives Santiago all the evidence he needs to call judgment on her and Louis. This is what Armand wanted all along. Santiago to think he was truly taking over the coven because Armand didn't want it anymore. He wanted Claudia's secret to be revealed because he wanted to be rid of her in order to finally break that last chain that kept Louis from being truly his. He didn't want to turn Madeleine into a vampire because he knew that if Louis was the one to make her, then he would be additionally responsible for breaking another one of the coven's rules alongside in the attempted murder of Lestat. Armand's plan, his only way to save Louis, was for him to make sure he never joined the coven, because then he had the argument of him not being applicable to the rules of a coven to which he was never a member. He didn't want to save Claudia, but he had a chance of saving Louis in exchange for willingly walking away from the Théâtre des Vampires forever, leaving no challenge to Santiago. This is why Armand uses his mind gift to manipulate the audience into shouting the word banishment. If Louis is exiled from the coven, it means he can never return, and Armand can go into exile with him in some other part of the world. The scene of Louis being placed into the coffin and covered in stones was of course temporary while they decided what to do with him. We know he gets out in the book and we know he gets out in the movie. He's also alive to tell his tale, so it's obvious he gets out. Now in the book, Armand takes care of Lestat by beating him lifeless because despite Lestat's appearance, he's still very weak. So he makes sure Lestat is no threat to Louis. Louis gets freed from the coffin and comes back to take revenge on the coven and the vampires, while Armand finally gets to have Louis to himself after all of the snags have been addressed. It is a perfectly well thought out plan for Armand. Now you might wonder, well, how could Louis be okay with all of this? How could he be okay with Armand willingly letting Claudia come to harm? Well, Louis knew Armand was right about Claudia not standing the test of time, that she would have met her end in the fire as her mind further departed her childlike body, and while vampires live so long, he was able to put it to rest with his conscience, but it doesn't mean that he ever stopped caring for Claudia. So guys, that's my video on Armand's secret plan. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all in the very next video.